Now, we all know what the Earth is, and the Moon, and the Sun, but have you ever heard of a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse, but just couldn't tell the difference? And did you ever wonder why solar eclipses don't happen as often as we think they do? Well, I'll help you answer those if you stick around and watch. Now, before I go into solar and lunar eclipses, I want to explain the orbit of the moon. So, if I were to ask you to describe the orbit of the moon, Earth and Sun, intertwined, you would say something like, the moon orbits the Earth and then the Earth orbits the Sun. Yeah, and right, yes, you would be correct, but we have to think of the orbits not two-dimensional, but rather three-dimensional in a volume of space. The Earth orbits the Sun, which takes about 365 days or a year to make a complete revolution, and the Moon takes about 27 days or a month to revolve one time around the Earth. But it orbits the Earth at about a 5-degree angle or slant, and this is where it throws us off a little. It doesn't orbit on the same plane as the Earth and the Sun do, and this explains why solar eclipses don't happen monthly, but I'll get to that later. Now let's take a break from the orbits of our Moon and Earth and start to focus on eclipses. In order to even start to understand eclipses, we have to clear up the different parts of a shadow. There are three main parts that make up a shadow: the umbra, penumbra, and antumbra. But when dealing with eclipses in space, we mainly are going to focus on the umbra and penumbra. The antumbra is part of a shadow that forms from an annular eclipse, but we'll get to that later. So off the bat, the umbra, which in Latin means shadow, is basically the darkest part of any shadow. Next, the penumbra, which means almost nearly in Latin, is, you guessed it, the lighter part of a shadow. Let's say the bright red dot is a person. Now, people who are inside the penumbra during a solar eclipse while on Earth will only experience a partial eclipse. This is because only a portion of the sun's light is obscured while in the penumbra, so only a partial part of the sun is obscured. While this is still cool, it's the exact opposite while in the umbra of the moon's shadow during a solar eclipse. While in the umbra of the moon's shadow, you will experience a total eclipse because, from your perspective on Earth, the sun will be completely obscured by a somewhat giant moon. Now, this would be the same if we were talking about a lunar eclipse, where the Earth is in between the sun and the moon when all three are aligned. However, we wouldn't notice a difference in a partial or total eclipse because of our unique perspective on Earth. It would only be visible while on the moon. So we've covered partial eclipses and total eclipses, but there's a third type that isn't often spoken about. It's called an annular eclipse, and it's far more spectacular to look at. It's basically a solar eclipse, but it happens when the Earth is closer to the sun in its orbit, and the moon is farther away from Earth in its orbit as well. So the moon is closer to the sun also. From Earth, this makes it appear as if the sun is then larger than the moon, and at the height of the annular eclipse, you'll see a ring of sunlight form. The sun appears to be larger than the moon, so the moon only blocks out the center of the sun at the height of the solar eclipse, and you're left with a ring of beautiful sunlight. These are rare, but honestly are spectacular. Now let's get back to why eclipses don't happen monthly. So remember the part where I explained that the moon actually orbits on a different plane than the sun and Earth at about a 5-degree tilt? Well, if it was on the same plane as the Earth and Sun, there would be a solar eclipse and lunar eclipse once a month because over the span of 27 days, all three planets would align twice, creating two eclipses. However, we definitely know this doesn't happen because most of the time the moon is either below or above the Earth and the moon's shadow doesn't hit the Earth. This result is in no eclipses monthly, but more like 2 to 3 partial eclipses yearly in certain parts of the Earth. So catching a total eclipse is spectacular, but even catching a partial eclipse is as amazing as well. Thank you for watching and see you soon. Bye.